Carolyn. Oh, I love that
Okay.
outfit. Brilliant. I
Oh,
love
thank
it.
you. It's
Yeah.
partly India, and my earrings came from New Zealand. My glasses came from Godalming. So a mix of everything. I'll take them off so you can see my wonderful eyebrows.
Yeah, looking good, looking good.
I'm so
So,
pleased with
good. So just to give everyone an introduction. So Carolyn, you came to me, or you contacted me probably about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago.
not quite as long, I think probably 18 months ago now.
Yeah, about
So
18 months ago.
I came back from one of my trips and my eyebrows were dripping because it's so warm and they just wear off. And then you get to the end of the day and you look in the mirror and you think, uh-oh. So I thought I need to do something permanently about it. And I'd seen an advert in a magazine, I think maybe on an aeroplane. So I thought, right, I've got to do something about this. So there we go. So came to see you and I've never looked back.
And I think when you first came to see me, your brief, when you first walked in, was that you just decided to bin the hair colour, go for low
Oh,
maintenance,
yes,
go for the silver, and you were quite concerned about getting the right tone for your skin with regards to
absolutely.
the eyebrows. And part of a lot of my consultations and a lot of my work isn't so much the technique and how I tattoo and the shape, but it's a lot of it goes into the side of how they're going to heal and how the skin, how it sits in the skin.
Well,
So I think,
you made me feel very comfortable with both the shape and the color because you obviously did tests on me and you showed me the color and I took it home on my skin and it went exactly the color that I wanted. Because really my eyebrows go back a long way. That when I was in my teens, many moons ago, the vogue was to pluck your eyebrows away. And I was left with nothing. And then I did a very interesting color and image design course in the 80s. And I learnt that your eyebrows frame your face. So from there, I was obviously drawing them in all the time and trying all different makes. I spent a fortune on pencils and I've left them in the car and left them in the house and the bathroom and everywhere. But at the end of the day, I realised that I needed to do something permanent, and that's where I met
there we
you.
are. So
Mm.
when you first came for the treatment, I think on the actual treatment day, you were quite relaxed about having it done, and you'd
Oh
worn your eyebrows in, so you didn't have any worries or anything about the actual
no,
process. Have you got any other tattoos?
excuse me. No, no, I haven't. And when I say to people, I have got one tattoo, and I keep very quiet, and it's quite an amusing intro because they're always thinking sort of not on my face. So, and when I tell them, they are absolutely amazed. And I've actually recommended a couple of my friends who've been to you as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, the word does get around. And I have absolutely no hesitation in recommending you or my eyebrows to anybody else.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So when you came to, you didn't have any worries or anything about the actual process. I can't remember back then whether you had any particular questions, apart from the matter of how will it work in the sun and in the heat, which I think
Yes.
we covered the fact that when in the ideal world, permanent makeup, or rather the sun and swimming, chlorine, the sand, those will make the treatment last less time, so they won't last as long. But we covered the fact that when you're in India and when you're out in these hot countries, you obviously wear hats and you look after your skin as well, wearing SPF.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was plagued with acne as a teenager at the same time. And I've always looked after my skin, and now I've got actually a skin that is very easy to look after, but I still have to feed it now a
Yeah,
lot with oil. I use a lot of aromatherapy oils on my skin.
yeah,
I'm not one to go for sort of pricey products. I go for the natural ones,
yeah,
and
more,
that's how I felt your service was very natural and
yeah. A
holistic.
lot of my clients, they like these treatments because actually the pigment's vegan.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a long lasting. You're not, there's not the packaging
Mm.
involved with cosmetics, so that side of things really good. So let's go back with you, because my reason for getting you on here and to introduce you to kind of my clients and to share your stories, whenever you come here, we always have amazing chats, and I'm always like, just like this afternoon when we had a chat this afternoon, and you threw like one of your supersonic bombs in to go, oh, did you know I was the international buyer for Marks and Spencer's? And I was like,
well, hang on a minute. No, come on, tone it down a bit. But no, I didn't go to university. My mum couldn't afford it, but I joined Marks and Spencer's as a management trainee. This is back in the early 70s. And yes, I worked for them for 4 years, but I could see beyond the doors of the store that there was a whole world going on out there. And whilst I was in the stores, I met the girls from head office who were the buyers. And they used to come out to the stores and assess the sales and get feedback from the customers and also from the staff. So I had this fixation that that was the job I wanted. Little did I know at the time that I would actually get paid to go shopping in Milan and Paris and Düsseldorf, which, you know, at the time you just sort of, oh, I'm just going off shopping for the weekend, you know, and I'm actually getting paid for it. So, no, it was a wonderful job because it incorporated my love of fabrics and sewing and colour and people, and I just loved it. And I didn't get that job immediately because I decided that I needed a break at the age of 22, which is probably the time when most kids would have finished university. So I did something that my family thought I was a little bit mad about, apart from my father, because he was a sort of intrepid yachtsman until his 80s. And I decided that I had my sights set on the Far East. And the only way to get there then, well, not the only way, but the most interesting way and the cheapest, was to go overland from Victoria Coach Station to Kathmandu, which is in northern India. And I joined a small bus load of, I think it was about 20 of us on board. It had to be a short axle bus to get through the Khyber Pass and beyond. And that was just an amazing opening for me. And I arrived in India, and believe it or not, I felt at home. It was a country that even now I say is like my second home. I just feel at home when I'm there. So anyway, that goes back, and I came back from that trip after 6 months, and of course I had to get myself another job. So I started looking around and thinking I could do better than Marks and Spencer's, but it was more of a case of the devil, you know, and they knew me. They trained me for 4 years. So I knocked on the door again, but this time I knocked on the door at head office because I had my eyes set on that job as a buyer. So I entered head office and I got accepted. And within about 18 months of having done sort of admin type jobs, I was selected to go on what they call a selection board. And most of that, I think there was 6 people on the board, and they question you about yourself, etc., like a normal interview. But the subject of what was I doing for the last 6 months came up, and that took up most of the interview because kids weren't doing gap years then. It was not part of the education system, which it is now. No. So I was quite unique, and one of the questions was, if we asked you to go to Manchester tomorrow, how would you feel? And one of the other people piped up, well, hang on, this girl's taken herself around the world. She won't worry about going to Manchester. The job's yours. So I was in, and I was starting and training the job that I was really, really wanted to do and was really interested in. But that was the 80s in Marks and Spencer's. And then it was, the kingpin of the high street. And we were treated like royalty. And I had a wonderful job.
You were how old?
And when I came back from my travels, I was 23. And I stayed with them from 1977 to 1987. So I did another 10 years. So I ended up doing 14 years with the company. But it's a sort of company that they work you hard. They want their pound of flesh. And it ran me into the ground. I suffered from an irritable bowel problem, and I went to a consultant in Harley Street. at Marks and Spencer's expense, I might add, because they were very good at things like that. And he just said, what was my job? And I told him, and he said, well, if you want to get rid of that, my dear, he said, you better leave your job. I thought that was a bit radical. But I realised that it was terribly stressful, and I'd had a good time, and I had another 10 years of doing something I really enjoyed. And a man had come into my life at that time, and I decided that I'd make a break. So that was when I did my training. So I left M&S and I trained as an image and colour consultant, because from the training that I got at M&S and my love of colour and fabrics, I could then help people.
Yeah.
And I could then send them into Marks and Spencer's and buy the right colour. So I did that for about 6 years. But during that time, I got a message from one of my old bosses at Marks and Spencer's, and they just set up the makeup department, and they wanted to have somebody come in to train the girls in the stores to sell the makeup. So she thought of me because she then heard about my training. And again, you know, I knew the workings of Marks and Spencer's. I knew how the management worked. I knew how everything worked about it. So they employed me, which was lovely because I was actually earning twice the amount I was earning when I was working for them. So again, I was traveling all around the country, training the girls in the stores. So where you see now the girls doing makeup demonstrations or being advisors, that started in the mid 80s. And now they've obviously got a very good range. They obviously haven't got enough staff around, but who am I to criticise? So that took me, to the sort of the mid 80s really and beyond. So I then had my daughter, and I decided to take my time spending as much time with her and bringing her up, and I stopped the colour consultancy because having a little toddler around with lots of lipsticks, as I'm sure you know, mind you, yours aren't toddlers, are they? But I mean, it can be a little bit risky. So so I decided to focus my attention on her. So that takes me to 1992.
Stop you. Let me just pause you there because I think I've got Facebook on. Can you just have a look on your screen and see if you can find the live feed, and then I can get you in on that? Because I think it works out.
I'm still getting the same picture, Sophia.
If you go on, so I've gone live. I'm live on there for 50 seconds now. So comment, moderation, follower, discussion, and your followers, load.
I'm getting it. I'm coming out of it somehow. I don't know.
Just trying to pull you on there if I can.
Oh, hang on. I've got a picture of you in the bottom right-hand corner.
Oh, try that.
Hi.
Live on there for 50 seconds.
Oh, no, that's my old... Oh, yeah, that's
it.
Say something that Sophia knows you're here. Hi.
No, just only comment.
The only thing is there's a time delay. Oh, my mum's just popped up and said, it's on.
Okay.
Just trying to pull you on there if I can.
We've got a time delay on the Facebook and the Instagram.
That's what I wanted, having them set side by side. Yeah.
That's weird, isn't
oh
it?
no, that's my old. Oh yeah, that's it.
I can't listen to both. I'm going to have to put that aside.
So I wonder if you can log on there. But then you have to see the picture. I wonder if you can actually.
It's quite a delay, Sophia. It's about 30 seconds.
Oh,
I've got a press.
Okay, Facebook people, I'm gonna have to just come. We'll have to come off the live on here, and I will share the video of the Instagram.
Later.
Okay.
Okay, I've turned that off.
Yeah, we'll carry on Instagram, and then I have to share the video.
Well, this is a guinea pig session, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, this is my first session, so that was an epic fail. So going back to, so you left Marks and Spencer's, and you had your daughter, and so you were in a relationship for 24 odd years. and then that sadly came to an end, and you
Yep.
found yourself single again.
Absolutely.
And so you were doing Pilates and yoga and things like that. Just you've always said to
Yes,
me that it's important to find yourself and get to know yourself.
I'd started yoga when I was 6 months pregnant with George, and that's my daughter, not my son. So that took me through a lot of difficult times in my relationship, and it was my healing time and my time. And I think anybody who is having a problem in anything, that you do need your own space and you have to make it. So I made my time after dropping her at school. I came home and I immediately went into the lounge, and I had my hour to myself. And that got me grounded for the rest of the day to obviously tackle whatever was ahead of me. So I found that has been an absolute mainstay in my life. It's kept me fit. It's introduced me to wonderful holidays with like-minded friends. And now going, as you know, going back to India a lot, my yoga mat comes with me and it comes out. You don't obviously need a yoga mat all the time, but you then have a focus. And even now in lockdown, it's still part of my routine. So I think anybody that has unfortunately found themselves on their own after maybe being in a relationship for any length of time, I think you need a little bit of breathing space at the end of it. And it took me 3 years. It took me 3 years to find myself again and smile again.
Yeah.
and just be me. And I went back into jobs that I knew. I had 2 jobs in retail, and I worked for an estate agent on a Saturday. So my whole week was taken up working. But hey ho, that kept me out of being, fed up or felt lonely or whatever. I obviously have a very good circle of girlfriends. Everybody was very supportive. But you can't rely on other people to make your life. You have to make it yourself.
Yeah. So you retired. You retired when you were 55?
I retired at 60 because having done that 14-year stretch at Marks and Spencer's, I was very fortunate to come out with a nice pension. And of course, I haven't got my state pension until just recently. So I had I was fortunate. At 60, I decided then that I would make a dash down under. It's another place that I've always wanted to go to, New Zealand. I've got some family there. I've got some family in Australia. And I've always been fascinated by San Francisco for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then also New York. So I put together this trip and I left on my own. I think the worst part was sitting on the bus at Heathrow going out to the plane. But it gave me an amazing amount of confidence to get away on my own.
So you were planning to travel on your own and just thought, sod it,
well,
just go and do this.
I think I had sort of not encouraged, but I'd spoken to a couple of friends who I thought may like to join me to maybe just a part of it. But obviously they had their personal reasons that they couldn't. So I thought, well, I want to go, so I'm going to go. So I did. I mean, I've been on other holidays, smaller, shorter holidays on my own, but usually with an interest, either walking or yoga or sailing. So although it was a longer time, I did have the benefit of having family around me as well for parts of it. But a fair bit of it, I was on my own. But I wasn't on my own because you meet people.
Was it daunting to be on your own, or?
I wouldn't say daunting. It's different. I mean, there were times when I thought, oh, I would love to talk to someone that I was with about something I'm looking at or experiencing. But as I say, I'm fairly active. So things that I was doing, I was going. One night I went up to a observatory and watch the stars, and you get talking to people about everything like that. Or I went on a sailing yacht. So again, you're sort of meeting people with similar interests. So you start talking, and you find after you've done the sailing trip, people have said, "Well, actually, we're just going for a bite to eat. Do you want to join us?"
Yeah.
So, you don't have to be on your own.
And where were you staying? Were you staying in like hostels or hotels?
In that trip in New Zealand, I tended to stay in what they called motels because it had it's a room with some cooking facilities, and I just felt more comfortable perhaps doing that. I don't know. I mean, the hostels are absolutely amazing, probably better now than they were then. Um, and I was using the public transport to get around. They have an amazing bus system in New Zealand. So if anybody has any apprehension about driving, although it's the same side of the road as us. So the majority of the time I was busing it around. And yes, it dictated sort of perhaps where you were about to stay because you wanted to be sort of close to the bus stops and things. But and then I borrowed a car from family and did a lot of travelling in the south of the island. So that ticked another box.
So how long were you away for?
That was about 3 months, that trip.
Was it? And what did your daughter
But I loved it and I wanted to go back. And I did. I went back after about 2 years. And this time I was with a partner that I'd met online, which is another story, which I know we have that in common. And we decided, looking at the prices, because the pound was not doing so well then for some reason, I can't remember what, that we couldn't really afford to spend a significant amount of time because you put me down as a jet setter, but when I get to a country, I like to get involved. I like to get my hands dirty. Yeah. Whatever it is, I like to get involved, meet the local people, whether it's New Zealand, Sri Lanka, or India. And in New Zealand, we joined a network called HelpX. Other people might have heard of other similar companies like Workaway.
I'll add it. HelpX.
Sorry?
I'll add it to the link on my blog. So then.
Okay. So it's a bit like internet dating because people put up their profiles as to what they want in terms of help. So it could be in a restaurant, it could be in a hostel, it could be in somebody's private house. Now we were sort of early 70s, early 60s, and we decided that it would probably be nicer for us and them that if we chose hosts that were in our age group. And it worked really well because now we've got wonderful friends of our age group in New Zealand that, in fact, we went back a second time 18 months later and stayed with them all again. And they've been able to stay.
And then you work on the farms or wherever they are?
Yeah, I mean, mostly they were, yes, there was a vineyard and there's all different people's personal gardens. So what we found was we had similar interests in terms of the time we'd start work, which was early, unlike some of perhaps the youngsters who wanted to have a bit more of a lie-in. And also we had similar tastes in food and music and conversation, and it just worked really well. One particular place we were staying in, lovely tennis courts, swimming pools. They also had an Airbnb apartment. And one weekend they needed to go away, so we were house sitting. Airbnb, yeah. So that's an amazing way to get around. Now, I'd also do it on my own. I'd have no hesitation. Again, you have to, it's a bit like going, we haven't really discussed internet dating, but, you have to read between the lines and, you contact somebody and then you get a feedback as to what they want, who they are. And I've met amazing people that way, all different walks of life.
Yeah.
And it's a really cheap way of traveling. Because some people say, well, how can you afford to keep going away? Well, the way I like to approach going to a new country is, like I said, I like to get under the skin. I like to meet local people. I've done gardening in India. I've worked in schools. I've done gardening, mainly gardening in New Zealand because that's what people wanted. And I was in my element. So why not get...
Like you were saying this morning, you kind of try to counteract your carbon footprint by doing things when you're out there, like the gardening, the planting, so that you're not sucking the life out of the planet when you're doing
Yes, I mean, as well. And we've also become, like a lot of the world, very sort of single-use plastic aware, and we've introduced glass bottles to places that were offering plastic bottles of water. And just really being very conscious of the environment. I mean, I actually one place that, in fact, that goes against that sort of ethos was, again, something I've always wanted to do was to go to Antarctica. A lot of people think I'm mad, but it was just a lifetime dream, and I made it reality this
Yeah.
year. So I actually felt quite guilty because I'd been to India at the end of last year, came back for Christmas and New Year, although I didn't enjoy it because I had some awful bug. But hey ho, I then went off to South America on my own, joined the ship in Ushuaia, which is right at the bottom of South America, and joined a boatload, or 200 guests with similar outlook. Again, you're doing something that you have, common ground. You're interested in. It brought out it confirmed my interest in photography, the environment, and just everything about what's going on in Antarctica. It's worth
So
going before it
from,
melts away.
so you've gone from New Zealand you did New Zealand, Sri Lanka, and then you went on to India, but you've been back to India quite a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I've been back to India, I think 3 times. Yes,
And that's where you've got the charity, the dog. Is it the dog?
Yes, I've met up with a particular lady in the south of India, and she rescues puppies, street puppies that are strays, brings them up, looks after them, tries to rehome them. And there's a wonderful charity that she uses when she gets dogs that are too injured that she can't cope with, called Bark India, and I'll be leaving that information with you. And they're always looking for donations, as is Veronique as well. And she's got something up and running at the moment. She's trapped, unfortunately, in Paris at the moment and is away from her beloved dogs. So I'm really thinking of her. So that is one aspect. The other is following on my daughter, believe it or not. Must have something in her genes, because she spent 6 weeks in India a few years back. She left on her own as well at the age of 22, so really following in my footsteps. And she was working at a school and at an orphanage with a group of other people from all around the world. And again, she's made friends all around the world. So traveling can have a massive, massive impact on your friendship circle.
Yeah.
And the people that you meet and you're working with like that, you tend to have really good, strong connections, and you have friends for life. Yeah. And it's lovely because you can visit them in their home countries, they can come and visit you. So yeah, it really does extend.
I wanted to get you on here because I meet so many clients who are kind of stuck in a rut, and they've been single all their lives and kind of they just want to get out there, but they have got no idea where to start. And they'll kind of be saying, "Oh, I'd love to travel. I think I've missed the boat a bit there." And I always say, "Well, I've got this client, Carolyn, and nothing stops her, and she'll go anywhere." And it's what I've always kind of brought you into it and kind of said, why have you missed the boat? Where is there any kind of an age limit to stop you?
No, absolutely not. So, I remember on that Sophia. I remember on that very first trip in 1976, there was actually a lady in her just 60. So at that time in the 70s, somebody of 60 was old.
Because then, when you first travelled years ago, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have social media. You were literally pen and paper, probably writing journals. I mean, God, if I went on holiday and didn't ring my mum most days, she'd probably kill me.
But you didn't expect it then.
No.
But you see, then I had that was quite a sort of safe option in that we had a mapped out route and we knew where we were going to be staying, YMCAs, etc. Yeah. So every so often we had a post restaurant so our family could write and leave letters. Oh, and that was our only connection with home. Yeah. And my blog became my airmail, the blue airmail letters home. And my mum, bless her, she typed them all up for me. So I've now got those as my memories. And
that's really lovely.
Yes,
like memoirs.
Yes, and then of course you didn't have Instagram, so nothing was instant. So you came back with your little rolls of film and had them developed.
Yeah.
and you'd sort of forgotten what you take.
Yeah.
But you know, that's another story. So
So
yeah,
that's
that's
the thing I wanted to also talk about. So when I look at your Instagram, obviously I follow you and you follow my business page, but I've always admired your Instagram feed because the photography on there is just, it looks professional. It's
oh, thank
unreal.
you.
Some of the plants, I mean, even just, you know, you've got local photos because you're only up the road from me, but, you know, just here and there, you'll snap a picture of a plant and you're like, what? That could be on a postcard. But photography's been quite a thing for you, hasn't it?
Yes, I've really got into it, and obviously those days gone by, it was sort of rolls of film, and now with digital, it's a totally different ball game. And I only use a little tiny, what's called a Panasonic Lumix, but it's got a 30 times zoom. So, for instance, when you are in foreign countries, and a lot of people are very nervous about having their photograph taken, so you either befriend somebody and get a rapport with them and then take a photograph close up. And some people just turn away and go no. So I respect that. Or I might be able to sneak a little photograph across a lake of a lady doing the washing, and I get my zoom out and I can take it. But I have just invested in a digital DSLR camera, which is giving me a little bit of headache getting my head around all the settings and things. But no, that's another challenge, and I intend to take myself off on probably a sort of week's photography course. Doing it somewhere. Yes, I mean I have done a couple recently locally, but I think it's one of those things you just need to sort of get immersed in it for a week, and then hopefully the penny will drop.
Yeah.
So I'm really enjoying that as well.
So when you're planning a trip, do you sit down when you think to yourself, right, I'm going to go back to Sri Lanka? Rashan, your friend Rashan keeps saying, oh, invited back to Sri Lanka.
Hi, Rashan. How are the coconuts doing?
So when you think to yourself, right, I'm going to go this year to this place. So will you plan your trip? Will you plan like a schedule or just book a
yeah, maybe it depends on the time of year, because sometimes you can be there at their busiest time. So I don't particularly now like arriving somewhere and not knowing where I'm staying that evening. Because also sometimes you can get better deals on places, but you know, you can imagine arriving somewhere off a train, because I tend to try and use local land transport, trains or buses. So you arrive tired, and the first thing you want to do is get to your room and freshen up. So I'd rather sort of know where I was going. Sometimes if you know you want to stay somewhere for a while, you might just book the first couple of nights, and then you've got an opportunity when you're there to then look around. Yeah. So that's another option. I use a lot of Airbnb.
Okay.
Again, similar to the Helpex situation, you are staying with local people, and they welcome you with open arms.
Yeah.
And they want to show you their town.
Yeah.
And you know, you might go out walking in the park or around the lake with them first thing in the morning. You might go out and do anything, go out shopping. They'll know all the tricks and all the local places to go. If you're looking for I wanted a picture frame as on my last occasion. I only had to ask my host. I would never have found it. So it's again, I find that a very, very nice way of meeting people, and again forming friendships.
If you didn't particularly get on very well, or if you didn't like them when you were there, you can leave and go and find somewhere else.
I've only had one bad experience, I must say, with the host who sort of turned to the bottle, which wasn't very nice. Stayed one night and moved out.
Okay.
And then another option was somewhere, I think in Auckland, where we stayed, and the host was not particularly communicative with, you know, we were just in the room and
yeah.
So but most, you know, 99% of the time it's been a positive experience. And I'd recommend it here as well in this country.
Yeah. Yeah, if somebody thought they wanted to do it, then what would you say money-wise? Are you thinking like the price of the flight, and then do you take much money with you, or is it Or do you
No,
have it on
no.
card and you don't take cash?
No, I use I find, well, in India now I've actually got SBI, which is State Bank of India UK account.
Okay.
So all I have to do is transfer my sterling into my SBI UK account, and then I can just draw out local currency or pay. It's a debit card.
Yeah.
And that's much cheaper. But obviously that's somewhere that I go back to regularly, so it's worth me doing that. Either that or I use FairFX, where again you can load down either dollars, euros, or pounds, and then you can use your local currency. It's a case of looking around and shopping around.
Yeah.
Barclaycard were doing a really good deal, I think about 3 years ago, and it's lasting until the year after next.
Yeah.
Where you've got minimal charges on withdrawing money and paying for things. So you just have to be a little bit savvy. And I don't take a lot of cash with me. I'll get cash as soon as I'm there, or I might have residue cash. Like I've come back with some rupees because I had to come back early this time because of the imminent lockdown. So I cashed some money and then I had some left over. That's not an issue. The other thing I find which makes me feel more comfortable, and if you were traveling solo, is to get a local country SIM card for your phone. And that gives you the option of obviously making calls locally. You're not relying on Wi-Fi. If you're out and about, you can use Google Maps. And there's obviously other apps that you can use that don't need Wi-Fi. For instance, Maps ME, which is something that you can use without that. But I just find it's useful if you're trying to make bookings with local places or follow up, whatever. Yeah. It's useful to have.
Cool.
So I find that a useful tool to have. And also now with the phones.
What about packing? Because when I go on holiday, I've got massive suitcase. So are you like a backpack? Really?
I did a backpack in the first couple of trips. This is going to India. I took a wheelie bag with me. It's not very big. I tend to take things that are easily washed and dry quickly, lots of quick dry things. The easy thing to pack for is if you're going to one climate. So if I'm just going to India or Sri Lanka, that's easy. One trip I did New Zealand and it was cold-ish, and I was working in gardens, so I had all my gardening gear. And then I go to India, and of course it's hot, so I'm trudging all my New Zealand gear around with me. So that's worth thinking about, keeping to similar climates. But now there's so many options of really maybe a little bit more expensive clothes. Somewhere like Rohan, or go to one of the walk-in shops in Guildford, and you can get some really good quality that lasts for years. Things to wear, and you can get them in the sales or get them online. So I find not traveling with, for instance, cotton t-shirts are awful in India because when you get hot, they don't let you breathe, and they're slower to dry. But I tend to buy local clothes when I'm there. I know I bought this in India. And they're cottons and they're embroidered. This is cotton, this is cotton. But it's beautifully embroidered. Yeah. And it probably cost me, people think, Indian things must be really cheap. Well, yes, some of them are in the marketplace. But if you only want it to last, the time you're there and then fall apart, or the colour will run or whatever.
Someone just said vacuum roll-up bags are a winner.
Oh, yes, they're good. I use those, yes.
Yeah. Mm. And then you said that you take your yoga mat as well, so I can just imagine you with all your bits.
Again, you can get thinner yoga mats, which can fold and put in the bottom of your bag, or you've got a yoga bag and you can stick it over your shoulder. So,
So where are you planning next?
Well, I wish I knew. Obviously India and Sri Lanka, as I'm seeing people wanting to see me, so I really ought to go back, but I would love to. So yes, I will. And of course, having left India rather quickly in March, wasn't it? I had, things unfinished I would like to go back and see. And it's the people. You go to see the people. Yeah. I'm not really one of these tourists that I get bushed around, or and you all traipse off and you have a quick look and then you move on. You know, I like to make my own plans.
Yeah.
And, you know, you meet people, you go back to see people. People make the country, in my opinion.
How do you find the language? And like, you obviously like to chat.
Sorry.
Language.
Well, obviously, India and Sri Lanka, all the countries I've been to so far,
They all speak English.
apart from South America, where it was Spanish. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
More so. But then I was in Buenos Aires, and then I was in Ushuaia, and there's quite a lot of English spoken. But no, that's something that I'm not a language person.
No.
But I will have a go. I always find that when I get to somewhere, especially in India, because you've got these different dialects in different parts of the country, and I find that wherever I've landed or got off at the railway station, you're usually getting some form of transport to where you're going to stay. So you start chatting to the little tuk-tuk driver or the taxi driver, and you know, you say namaste in the north and wanakom in the south, and you just say, well, how do you say? And they're so happy to help you with the language. And that is it's a great way of sort of breaking the ice with people. And if you make that effort and you're saying hello and smiling, they will smile back.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they want you there, because obviously you are a tourist. Yeah. But you know, you then strike up a rapport with somebody. Whereas they can sometimes look at you a little bit, what's she going to be like? But if you smile and get down to the same level, whether it's children or whatever, I mean, the children there are just wonderful.
Yeah,
they melt my heart. It's so wonderful seeing kids playing in the street with a little stick and a stone, you know, and smiling. I'll never forget of staying in a little road in Bangalore, and the day I left, I thought, oh, I'm just going to get the little children at the end. There was two families, and the parents, they come in from the countryside to the towns to work, because they obviously get more money, and they actually live on the building site. And between them, they had about 3 children, and they were literally playing in the sand, in the bricks or whatever. So I thought, I'm going to treat them to a little ball. So I brought them each a little ball. I mean, it's like their faces, and it was just so grateful. And I've got a lovely photograph on Instagram of those 3 little kids. Yeah. So that makes...
there when you were out there in March, what happened with Corona? Had you heard about it? How long had you been out there?
Arrived on the 17th of February. So it was just sort of beginning to come up in the news. No sort of hint of it anywhere or anything. And then, of course, as the weeks went on, it started getting more and more serious.
Was it out there or was it serious here? Because I was watching the news thinking, I wonder how bad will this get if it hit India, but it didn't seem to hit India when it hit us.
I can't remember the dates and the timing, but I do know that they seem to be more aware than we were, because we left through Mumbai and then on to Dubai, and in both those countries and those airports there was lots of signs up and people, and I was wearing a mask. You were aware there was a bit of a tension, and it was just a feeling.
Yeah.
We got back to Heathrow and nothing, just walked straight through. So I was completely amazed. Came back, went straight into 2 weeks of isolation, because I felt that I could have picked anything up on on those transits.
But you did that.
Yes,
but you weren't told to do that. You just did that of your own accord.
Yeah, because I would have felt awful if I had brought something back and passed it on to someone I knew. So, I mean, I was lying in bed, sitting in bed in India, and I thought I better get some shopping in, because I heard about the shortage of loo rolls. And so I managed to get a
case from India.
Well, I brought back paracetamol with me, because again I heard there was a shortage of that, and I was doling that out to friends. No, but I did an online shop and got it picked up by a friend.
Did you?
Yeah, the next day.
And so you're back here. How things? So do you stay in touch with people in India? Have you stayed in touch with
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And because are they okay?
everybody I know is okay. So yes.
Have they been hit? Because we only see what's in the news, and you kind of see like Africa and things. You're seeing all these people queuing up for food, but is it under control in India? I don't know.
Well, I have been. I've had supported a lovely restaurant that I used in Udaipur called Yummy Yoga, believe it or not, and they every day are feeding 150 people. And they are also going out feeding the stray dogs and cats, but also the cows. Now, the thing in India, if you haven't been, and it might seem quite odd and peculiar, but the animals live off what they find on the streets.
Really?
The ones that are living on the streets. But of course, the restaurants have closed, the shops have closed, so their source of food is now dried up. So it takes those sort of people with, love and care for them and foresight that they will then do something about it. And that's happening, I know, in lots of places in India.
Okay.
So not only the people are affected because, there is a shortage of shops open, etc.
Yeah.
And of course, they had all the problem with the migrant workers, like those two building families. They'd probably gone back to their home village and left the city.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any sort of phone contact with them, so I don't know. But no, I've got, I just have people's numbers, and I've just gone through my list. And when things started getting bad and they had lockdown, I just made a little hello, how are you, and kept in touch. And likewise, I get little namastes from people that I've met, and it's just really nice.
Mm-hmm. So how have you been since you've been grounded? I should call it. What are you doing while you're here and kind of?
Well, I'm really carrying on. Luckily, I mean, I'm in a very fortunate position. I haven't got to worry about a job. I haven't got young children as you have, and I've virtually carried on. I cycle now everywhere. I've only taken my car out, I think, 3 times in nearly 2 months. I've been a member of a community garden, which is about 4 miles away from where I live for the last 7 years. So I've continued working there, and we're under strict rules as to how we work, and the numbers working. And that's been my saving grace in lots of respects. Again, I joined just as I was partly when I'd just moved here and I was on my own, and I met local people and salt of the earth. And from there, I joined cycling groups. I've walked the Camino with people there. And you join a lot of really lovely, like-minded people that you probably wouldn't meet in your normal circle of friends. And so that sort of takes care of my gardening bug, my photography.
You're still doing yoga. You can't go to class.
Yes. No, you don't. I mean, you don't have to have a class to do yoga, but I have joined. Yeah, I've joined. I do it online, and last year I went to Marrakesh. Treated my daughter to a week in Marrakesh, which was absolutely wonderful with a company. Met 2 lovely people there, and the yoga teacher there, Pip. That's Tonic Retreats. I'd recommend that to anybody. I'm now joining her on her live feeds as well. So I think this situation has actually opened up a lot of different business opportunities for people, and I'm sure some of them will continue.
Yeah.
But obviously it doesn't. You don't get the same feeling because you haven't got someone right next door to you. But hey ho, it's a way of keeping in touch, and it's really nice.
Oh, it's been really good. Just the last few days of just touching base with you and planning today. It's been a real opener, Carolyn.
It's been my pleasure, because it's a joy to be with you. You are one amazing person as well. You keep very quiet. Until I read your bio, I didn't realise all the things that you've been through in life, and all the amazing things that you are helping. You're helping people. I noticed was it 2 or 3 days ago, your Instagram post about people who are obviously having problems at home with abuse, etc. And your wonderful, your wonderful training to watch out for any problems on people's skin. I mean, I had my mole taken off, not because you told me, but I was worried about it, and you said, okay, so I went to the hospital, and I did need to have it taken, but it was not malignant. But
Was that the last time I saw you? We were talking about that.
quite possibly, yes. I had
Yeah.
it done about a year ago, last July, I think it was.
So they send it away, and
Yeah.
everything was all clear with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just got a little tiny scar, which, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you can give me a new little tattoo there.
Oh, I don't. Oh, we've been having a discussion about freckles, and I'm like, no, the doing the Masked course has really opened my eyes, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And it's not something that I make money on. It's not a revenue or anything, but
No.
I see it all the time, and I've seen a couple of clients, and I see them a year ago and take photos, and then they come back, and I can see the difference in something. And one lady had a patch above her eyebrow. I think I told you about this last time you were in. Yeah. I said to her, "How long's that been there?" And she said, "Oh, not long. A couple of months." And I said, "Oh, I don't think so." And we looked back on her pictures that I had a year ago, and it was there, but it had completely changed.
Oh,
and I
wow.
showed her the photo, and then I showed her we took a photo, and I just said to her, "Take these pictures." I printed them out, put the dates on there, take them to the GP so they can see the change, and get them to refer you. And I've always said that, there's no point going to a GP with a problem and wanting them to say something. I always say, go in there, be assertive, and say, "I'm worried about this and I want a referral." And they can't really deny it. So she went for the referral, and it turned out she had stage 3 skin cancer. So she's having to have chemo, and she had lymph nodes removed and all sorts. But she says to me, if I hadn't have done that, she would never have gone. And it's a real kind of eye opener. I think it's a gift, and I'm here and I'm able to help people with these sort of things. And I kind of think, it's my responsibility to do that. So it's nice to have it come back and help people. It's good, and I love what I do here. Like I said, the reason I want to do these client spotlights is to obviously introduce other people to what I see and see why I love what I do. And people say to me, "Oh, you're just doing eyebrows." I'm not. Your eyebrows are just a tiny little tip of the iceberg as to our relationship and how I love. When I see your name come up, I'm like, first thing I think, "Oh my God, I wonder where Carolyn's been this time I see her." And then I know that we'll get into some in-depth story for the next 2 hours. It's brilliant.
Well, I want to book in with you to have something done for my lips, because again, I'd be very low maintenance then.
Yeah, you will, and it'll add a little splash of colour. I mean, I've always kind of kept away from the lip liner because I've always hated seeing
I don't like that.
harsh lines. And this technique is called Invisilip, and it's literally just a stain. It's literally just a blush to lift the natural colour. So I'm really excited about that. Those pigments should be coming, and I am planning on going live on a box opening because I think everyone's going to see me like.
Has it got an SPF in it? Has it got an SPF?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't.
I suppose you could put a clear one over the top.
Yeah, you'd be able. So you've got the lip glosses, but you'll be able to, if you've got the lip tattoo, if you've got the lips, the treatment, then obviously you can put your SPF over the top of that. And it's not going to dislodge it, and it's long lasting. So it will be a good one. And I stock all of the Ultra Sun SPF. So
brilliant.
I can probably put a pack together for that. But yeah, it's been really lovely speaking to you, Carolyn. Thank you so much for doing this and being my friend.
Well, you actually just said, "Would you like to have a little chat on Instagram?" And I thought it'd just be, "Oh, well, hello, Sophia." I didn't realise quite what I'd let myself in for, but hey ho, it's an experience for me as well. So
good, and it's been nice to. I love listening to all your stories, and like I said, even just this week when you just dropped the bomb of, I was a Marks and Spencer's buyer, and I'm like.
Well, it doesn't. I don't think it has the cachet now as it used to, because I don't really go in the store much now. The food's still good, and the knickers.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting back back in here and getting everybody booked in, and I think I've got you booked in over the next couple of months.
Middle of June, I think it is. So we've got a date, so we'll sort out what I'd like to do.
Hopefully Boris will let us out, and
better, better.
Well,
anyway, thanks for the opportunity, and I hope it encourages other people perhaps to come forward with even more interesting stories than mine.
Yeah, I've got.